How's it going, everybody? This is Brother Outlaw. I'm new with a brand new podcast called Truth Talks, and I've come here to want to spread the word or spread a spread knowledge and understanding in this world. I've actually done this more on a face to face kind of level, but I feel like I feel it within me to try to reach out and try to reach many more people as possible. Um, and I have plenty of topics I wanted to talk about, and I figured the first thing I would want to talk about is is about separation, and how that it really affects people in this world, and how it's been used against us to cause us cause so much destruction and harm within ourselves and in the community and stuff. And one of the first places that's always been a big deal when we think about it is how they took God out of the schools. You know, that was done years ago, but that was just the beginning of where they were trying to make sure people didn't have the raised children and with the connection to the Most High, knowing to pray and give homage to the Most High. And a lot of times that it's this is one of the things that's like when you think about it, it's sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow because there's so much that goes on, and a lot of times people don't see it, and that's why I'm here trying to make sure that people do understand it, and that, like I said, with God being taken out of the church, I mean out of the school, excuse me, you also have racism, you also have politics, you also have gang warfare, you also have been men being put against women and men treating women a certain way and women treating men a certain way, and it's just all of this has been done by the devil himself, having people put in positions to create situations that causes people to be separated amongst one another. And one thing people have to know is that God himself is about harmony. God is about oneness. God is about people coming together. That is what his creation was for. Because if you think about it, the devil is all about blaspheming against God's creation. And one of the things that God is not not about is separation. When God is about union, God is about oneness, things being a whole. The devil has used many different things and tactics and has put people out with all these teachings, like even say like the feminist movement. The feminist movement has made women look a certain way and has acted as if they don't need men. And then you have racism, that is made as where, and it's not just really racism. It's not really a black versus white kind of thing. This is like people just not liking each other because of their own skin color. People don't even realize that's ignorant as hell. That's stupid because how can anybody think they're intelligent but not like someone because of the color of the skin? That doesn't make sense. We gotta understand, people, that there's something wrong in this world, and that if we actually took the time to stop and think about we why we're fighting with each other so much, it's because someone has made it a point to keep us against one another. You know, keeping where people can't understand each other's perspectives, people's point of views. People try to out talk one another, try to outsmart one another. People stab each other in the back. Things of that nature, man. And so even with a topic like this, you kind of don't. It doesn't even matter where you begin, even though it kind of seems like it's like where can you begin? But the thing is like you know, the devil when devil came down, man, he wanted to make sure that he was gonna cause some type of blasphemy against God himself and with this creation. And if you think about it, that is a separation of himself, or a way of separating himself from the Most High. I'm gonna take all his stuff and I'm gonna flip it upside down. So what am I gonna do? Create. Some people. This is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people because some people be like homosexuality. You know, but that's one upside down format. Or when the fallen angels came down, they decided to take women and create, which was called the Nephilim, right? The Nephilim are supposed to be an offspring between the fallen angels and humanity, the women of man. That in turn created something that was not of creation itself, or a natural form of creation that God had put on this planet. That is an opposite. That is a separation. But that's one of many things. You know, a lot of times that I'll even go as far as talking about religion, so-called religion. When you have, say, Christian and Buddhism, Christianity, and stuff like that. Because I asked my father a long time ago, can a Christian, a Buddhist, a Hindu, and a Catholic sit in the same room and talk about God and get along? He said no. And I said, why? Because they all don't believe in God. And I said, how do you know? I just do. It's like, obviously he didn't study. I read a passage about a Buddhist monk a long time ago, and he was reading the scriptures from the Bible about when Moses met the Most High. And he was saying that when he was speaking to the Most High, he said, the Buddhist monk was like, that is pure Zen. And if you don't understand, Zen is a state of mind that you reach when you're meditating. Now, of course, in the Bible, or at least in the teachings that has been shown in churches, they tell you to read the Bible and meditate on His Word. Think about that, right? There were some pastors who caught wind of this man, because he wrote it down and was talking about how this was pure Zen, that he basically was agreeing with the situation of the Bible about Moses meeting the Most High. But these pastors disowned and discredited this man for agreeing with what was said in the Bible. Now, I think people need to take the time to understand why these people did that. And can we really say that that the Buddhist monk is wrong for agreeing that his level of understanding from what he was taught, was equal or on the same level of what the Bible was talking about when the Most High introduced himself to Moses? Because in Buddhism, to reach Zen, which is a state of being, right, where you're connected to the universe, I think that's what they say is the universe. But you have to understand, with words, words have been used to cause so much forms of separation amongst people. It's not even funny. Because some people say, oh, the universe, that's not right. It's supposed to be God. Well, the thing is, everything that was made by the Most High is the Most High. Anything that comes from the Most High is the Most High. We can't say that it's not. We really can't. Because nothing that's in existence now would never have its place if it wasn't for the Most High. So we have to understand that as long as the enemy's been on this planet, this enemy has made sure to have people in positions to cause a form of separation. Because if people begin to connect the dots with one another, then they'll realize that nobody's really that much different from one another, even if it came down to religious understandings. Because in Buddhism, they say in order for you to reach Zazen, or to reach Zen, you have to have the innate desire to want to save other sentient beings. A sentient being would be someone like myself, an animal, a tree. These are living beings. Sentient beings are living beings who are aware of themselves. So can that really say that there is, can you really sit there and say that a Buddhist and a Christian can't get along? When in the Bible it states that, you're supposed to love thy neighbor as you would love yourself. You get what I'm saying? These people have a level of understanding that on both levels, if you take away all the doctrine, you take away the churches, you take away everything else but exactly what you're supposed to be described to do, you would realize that people are actually operating the same exact ways. The whole problem is that people don't realize that there's a deliberate act of separation where people cannot find that we're all on the same level. Because like my father said, he was like, well, they don't believe in God because they use different words. And we have to understand that wordplay has been used on everybody for many different things. And yet we don't even realize that our form of English, is been used against us in so many ways. We just don't recognize the wordplay that's been used against us. That's like if you go to court, the wordplay is different than it is from a regular conversation. They talk differently. But sometimes, like, I put it like this: I was playing a video game a long time ago, and it was called Metal Gear Revengeance, right? And they talked about this. They said it themselves that I was in the game. You're supposed to attack this building, and it's supposed to be this corporation or whatever. Now, in the corporation, they kidnap children and use their organs to create and well, took the brains and stuff and put them in cybernetic bodies and would put them in simulations where they were killing people and would use in every time to kill somebody the endorphin they would set off the endorphins in the brain to get in their pleasure center to make it seem like they were doing a good thing. Now, when you get to a certain section of the floor to that area where they were holding the human brains, only certain people were allowed to go into that, right? To go into that area. But they described it as an area that was only for like say research and development, right? And but all in all, it was really for the experimental use of children brains to cause them to become natural, to not well, not to become natural born, but to become manipulated into becoming killers. And all they had to do was just change the words around. Think about that, right? That's no different from the whole Pizzagate situation when the people are talking about these nasty people are talking about children and what type of children they want. They would use words like pizza and toppings, pizza toppings. So it's all about how you use your words and how it's used and stuff like that. Even with slang and stuff like that, people use words differently. But a lot of times people want to argue about no, this is this way or no is that way, when really you're talking about the same thing, trying to act like yours is completely different. We don't realize that the devil has used many different ways of separating people amongst each other, and it's been deliberate. The devil has been around longer than us, so this being's had more time to understand these different cultures that's come around the world. Now, mind you, I bring this up because if you think about it, right, the Most High is a being whose intelligence and wisdom is power is something that we cannot fathom. Even if the Most High had wings on his back, a feather, a single feather that was to come off, and we had it, it would take us probably thousands of years possibly to be able to understand the knowledge of that one feather. Think about that. You know, the fingernail of the Most High is something that we wouldn't be able to completely break down just yet. We have to understand that the Most High has had his way of reaching people throughout the world. Throughout the world. We can't sit there and say the Most High didn't reach nobody, because how would we truly know? We don't definitively know. The only way we truly do know that the Most High has had his hand in certain situations and with people is in what was taught to us. And if you look at Hinduism and how they function, if you look at Buddhism and how they function, and you see, even if you look back in Christianity and how they're supposed to function, and Catholicism and how they're supposed to function, you would realize that when you take away all the doctrines and all the priests and the bishops and the pastors, and you talk about the way in which we're supposed to live our lives, it's all completely the same. It's all completely the same. There is no real difference in these different cultures, except for the fact that they're just different cultures. So with each culture, there comes a development of the way a person thinks and acts and carries themselves, because within that culture is how they develop their society. So how the society is being developed, the Most High more than likely took his time to understand that if this is how these people think and act, then I can reach these people in this way. We are not the Most High, so we cannot sit there and say the Most High did not reach these people or did not try to reach these people. Because at the end of the day, if all hell broke loose right now and say we ended up in an area where Hindu or Buddhist monks were sitting at, or Buddhist priests were sitting at, we would want them to help us. And because of their understanding and the way that they were taught, they would be treating us exactly how we would understand, especially from the Ten Commandments. and especially from the parts of the Bible. Treat those how you want to be treated. Love thy neighbor how you want to be loved yourself. They understand the same exact things because they teach compassion, they teach love, they teach unity, they teach unconditional love. These are things that we don't really act as we try to act like it's not you know it's not true. But these are things that are true amongst all of us. If we take the time to really understand one another, we'll realize that we're not that much different, you know. But we have to understand that in this time period that's been going on over the years, there's been a deliberate form of separation amongst the people, and that is for a reason. If you look at it as a military tactic, you're trying to destroy your enemy and you're having a tough time taking them down, having them destroy each other from within is the best route to go. That's less manpower. That's less resources to take in because they waste their own on each other. If you think about it, right? When slavery hit, when black people, the people of this country, as the descendants of the lost tribe of Israel, when we lost our way, right? And we separated ourselves from the Most High because we didn't do what we were supposed to do. We didn't abide by the laws and the way we were supposed to live our lives, and we fell into slavery. Yet, in those times of slavery, they made sure to strip us of our knowledge. That is, of who we are, where we come from, what we understand about ourselves. So they made sure to have us separate. And then they turned right around and they made sure that we would be separated, not only from within ourselves, but from within our own culture of our own people. Turning father against son, turning the old against the young, turning the man against the woman. I mean, these are things that we understand, like say Section 8. Section 8 means that a man cannot live in the home with the woman who has children. Separation. Separation, it still comes down to the factor of a man being against a woman and a woman against a man. It's like I said earlier about the feminist movement. And that, and mind you, the feminist movement been around for a while, and they're going around acting like, men ain't shit. They don't need men. The only thing I can ask is, how do you procreate? But man and woman was not designed to be separate from one another. But yet you had this group come out, somebody who had to pay them to come out and snatch the minds of these women who probably may not have a full awareness of themselves or a level of competence of themselves to understand that man and woman, it was meant to be together, and not one was meant to be better than the other or greater than the other. And that's one form of separation. There are other forms of separation, like I said, racism. And it's not just black against white. That's just racism itself. That causes a separation. We have to understand that these things, this separation that is been used directly because if people were to come together, would it not be harder to take people down? Would it not be harder to control people? Think about that. That's just like what's happening in this country, in this country of America right now. All these factions and groups, all these political groups, Proud Boys and the 3%ers and stuff like that, BLM, all these groups and factions are causing a separation. And even with the media, they're still trying to put out, white cops, or not even just really white cops, it's cops itself. But then we talk about systemic racism and stuff like that. White people were raised to dislike and hate on black folks. Yet, let alone, black folks were raised to hate on themselves and each other. We have to think about what's going on in this world, people. We have to understand that we're in a times where they're deliberately trying to make sure that we all are not as one with each other. Because if we are as one with each other, how can we control each other? I mean, how can we be controlled? How are we going to be fighting with each other? Obviously, there's something going on behind the scenes of why so many people are being pitted against one another. I mean, even still, like, if you look at politics, Democrat and Republic, or left wing versus right wing, conservative and liberal. From what I understand and what everybody seems to understand, that a house divided can't stand. So if a house divided can't stand, why are people still separating themselves into groups? Personally, well, I won't say personally. A lot of the things come from ideals and understandings. Nobody really is always going to think the same and see things the same way, and that's understandable. You also have to understand how to agree to disagree. But the thing is, people don't want to take the time to try to listen to someone else in order to see where they come from. They want to be like, oh, you're wrong and I'm right. And a lot of times they try to throw facts. They think they're throwing facts at each other. Because I mean, if you look at this whole political parties that's been going on, the so-called facts that's been going on, that have been thrown at each other. These are topics that have been made up, and people have absorbed them, and they're spitballing them back and forth at each other. And that's why I would think that all these politicians, they're really not for the people. They're really not for the people. And if there are people in the world that understand that a lot of these politicians are not for the people, why are we still fighting each other? Why? Why is there still separation? It's just like in a relationship, right? Between a man and a woman. When you want to get to know this woman or you want to get to know this man, you sit down and have a conversation with them. You sit down and do things with each other so you can learn what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what makes them, laugh, and so on and so forth. You understand who this person is. Because even when you get down to the part of marriage, you're accepting to live with this person for who they are, for better or worse, for their good and their bad. Think about that. We're there to be with each other because nobody's perfect. So when you're living with someone or you're trying to develop a relationship or trying to have a marriage with one another, you're accepting everything about this person, both good and bad. Even if it does make you upset or if it makes you think a certain way, you still accept them for who they are and for what they do. Of course, there are certain things amongst each other that, you can all work on and, become better. But if you think about it, right, you're supposed to come into a relationship as a whole, not in pieces. Old folks will tell you that all the time. You can't come into a relationship in pieces because that's what causes strife and destruction in a relationship. These are things that cause separation. And when you don't have someone to teach this, it makes it harder for the type of to keep things as a unity as a whole. Because truth be told, the Most High Himself is somebody that's about unity, that is about oneness. That is why they say, like, let these two become one. Let these two come together. So even when you talk about nationalities and you're talking about color and stuff like that, the only thing that really makes humanity different from itself, because we're not different races, because if we were different races, we would be different species. We're not a different species. We are one race. It's called the humanities, the human race. But yet we've been taught to say these sort of things. So we have to understand that from childhood on up, we've been raised on the level of thinking and talking with our language on that to be separate from one another. The only thing that truly separates us is the color of our skin, the language we speak, and the land that we live on. That's it. That is it. But that is supposed to be how creation really works. Because God created things to be different, but the same. So when you think about it, right? When you look back at creation, God created things to be different, but yet coming from the same thing. Like if you look at trees, pine, oak, redwood, and so on and so forth. We know that trees exist, but there are different kinds of trees. We know dogs exist, and there's different kind of dogs. Chihuahua, Rottweiler, Pit Bull, Doberman, you know what I'm saying? So on and so forth. German Shepherd, cats, and I'm sorry, I don't really know the different kind of cats, like especially from domesticated cats, but yet you could say lion and tiger. They're still a cat breed. Bobcats, they're still different kind of cats, but they're still from the cat family. You see what I'm saying? Fish, and so many different types of fish. And it's funny because with this form of separation, how is it that we really going to survive as a species? We won't. Everything has its place. But if we think about it, there has to be a reason why there's so much of this whole separation and division that's going on in this world. And it has to be happening for a reason. It has to be happening for a reason. And if we don't take heed to that, we're just going to fall victim to the trap that we're all about to be put in. We have to understand, like this, right? The animals in this world may be different, but they can coexist with each other. And they can coexist with each other, like say a bird and a wildebeest. The bird gets to eat the bugs off the wildebeest's back. So the bird gets food off of the wildebeest's back. In turn, the bird will look around while he's eating, and if he sees a predator like a lion or a cheetah or something, he's gonna squawk and be like, "Oh shit! There's a predator, man. We gotta get up out of here." It'll squawk loud enough for everybody to hear it, and they all take off running. When they find another safe place, that same bird will come back to that same wildebeest and get back on his back and find bugs to eat off his back. That's coexisting. Because those bugs will probably be a hindrance to that wildebeest, and it doesn't like it. It's like, damn, I can't scratch my back. But this bird is here. He gets to pick my back. So he gets to eat, and and he looks out. We all look out for each other. He says, predator, I get the fuck out the way. I still have bugs on my back, because if I die, I don't have no bugs on my back. So if I have bugs on my back, he gets to eat, and he gets to call out predators. So, and I get to chill and eat my food. We don't know how to coexist. We're sitting here running around thinking that one is better than the other, or we don't need nobody. That's just ignorance. That's flat out stupid. How can we really survive without one another? Some of us have been here longer than others, but does it really matter? No. It never really did. How does a man survive without a woman? How does a woman survive without a man? Nature wasn't created that way, people. It wasn't. Because as a man's role back in the day, it was our job to go out and find food and bring it back. The woman took the food, prepared it for the whole family. In turn, while she's feeding him and the family, his job is to make sure that they stay safe. She keeps them fed, he keeps them safe. It's just a coexistence. And if people don't know how to work with one another, don't know how to understand one another, then we're just going to keep fighting with each other, and we're going to eventually kill each other off, and nobody wins. It's like I taught my daughter a long time ago, is if you hit your friend, what's going to happen? She said, my friend will probably get mad and hit me back. And I said, what would you do? She said, I'll probably get mad and hit her back. And I said, then what happens? She's like, oh, then we'll both be mad hitting each other. I said, yeah, y'all end up fighting. And then in the end, what happens? Nobody's friends. And y'all begin to be angry or hate each other. And all for what? Nobody wins. Even if somebody won that fight, nobody truly wins. Because you lose out on the connection of being with each other to survive or have friendship or love. This whole thing in this world we're supposed to be living in is with love and compassion with each other. That's why I brought up the whole religious thing, because no matter what, a Hindu and a Buddhist understands love and compassion. No different from a Catholic and a Christian. They understand love and compassion. That is what we're all taught. So in some way, shape, or form, the Most High got to all these people and was trying to create a doctrine that allowed people to be to be connected with each other, to be close to one another. Because at the same time, even if it is different, what's the big deal? I don't see how a Hindu or a Buddhist is disrupting a Christian from the way they live and the way they do things. It doesn't make sense. So if it's not disrupting them, how's it wrong? Especially if we're not even taking the time to look into things. We got to understand that if we're not taking the time to look into what other people are talking about, how can we really discredit them on what they're talking about, what they're doing is wrong and it's not of God? Like as if we truly know what's of God. We can say, oh, well, what about the Bible? The Bible is a book that's only about this thick, and God is an infinite being that goes on forever. Does that book really describe the Most High? No. That book has been used as a reference book to talk about what other people went through and to help us to understand how we can keep our faith with the Most High. And even though the book, it tells you to keep your faith and have your full understanding and your full focus on the Most High. So that means it's not the book, it's about the relationship. We're taught to do certain things, which means that these are things we are supposed to live and abide by each day. And that's the same thing that goes with them. But we also have to understand is this, whether we want to or not, if you look at the human body and you cut it open, you got a liver, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, the small intestines, the large intestines, the brain. You understand? All these different organs are within the human body. They look and they function differently. If these things look and function differently, and if they messed around and operated the same, would that body still really be alive? Do we really know? Because if that's the case, then it really should be all one big organ that does all these different things at the same time. But it's not that. We have different organs that look and function differently. Like there are different kind of trees, different kinds of fish, different kinds of dogs, and yet with all these creatures that lives on this one planet, almost all these creatures have a particular purpose. All these creatures on this planet have a particular purpose. If we look at the things that we use in our house, we have a garbage disposal. What animals on this planet act as a garbage disposal? Think about that. We know what fungus is for. Think about that. We know what bees are for. They have a particular purpose. Ants have a particular purpose. And each of these things brings something to the table of keeping the ecosystem alive. Predators are there to make sure that the ecosystem is not out of balance if there's too many prey or too many herbivores eating too much of the plants. Because if they eat too much of the plants, then that will mess up the ecosystem. But yet, if too many predators eat too much of the herbivores, that throws the ecosystem off. There has to be a balance.